Good evening. My name is Natalia Radchenko. I'm a partner of the Ukrainian legal company Legal House, and I will present the topic about Poland. Poland as a country and platform to enter to start business in Europe. Our company already used by unique proposal of this country, and we registered an office in Warsaw and successfully operate and service our clients that decided to open business in Europe and Poland. We also have customers from Belarus and Russia, have broad experience company in these countries. I would like to say why we consider that Poland is interesting for businesses that want to be localized in Europe. Let's see the global indicators. If I was asked how I would characterize this country in a couple of words, I would say that Poland is a stable dynamics. 1990 and GDP of country increased 7 times. It's very impressive. This country is the only country in the EU that avoided recession in 2007, 2008. The domestic market in Poland is very large, and it's important for businesses that come with goods and services. And those who want to try to trade in the country of registration, it's a good indicator, 38 million of population. For comparison, Estonia or Latvia Estonia is 1.3 million, Lithuania 3.7. So Poland is a larger and interesting market for trading across borders criteria. As from doing business 2020, Poland takes the first place. So as an international hub, got 100 score.
Poland has received 100 points in doing business 2020 ratings. So the country is definitely interesting, very attractive and highly developed. 192 billion euro was the GDP last year. This year will certainly see a certain reduction. However, please allow me to tell you that I'm a Polish resident. I live here in Poland, in Warsaw, and I can see that the country is successfully going through the pandemic. From year 2021 to year 2027, the country is going to receive subsidies from the European Union, 160 billion euro, 125 of that are dotations which will not have to be returned. It will be focused, it will be channeled into the economy which has suffered from COVID-19 pandemic. Regarding the country's business support mechanisms, the criteria are quite good. Despite the fact that the 100% beneficiaries of the company are foreign, we have received financial assistance from the government of Poland within the scope provided to other companies in the segment, in the sector. It was completely non-refundable, non-returnable help. It will not have to be repaid, non-repayable. I think everyone has suffered uniformly since everyone suffered from the lockdown. Now, if we take the ease of entering the market criteria, for me, as a businesswoman, as a person that has registered businesses not only in Poland, but in other countries, such as Poland, Spain, first of all, I check if I'm able to register a company without any hurdles or red tape. Poland does provide opportunities for remote registration, distant registration. You can do it online. First type of registration is using a notary. It's a typical standard procedure, quite costly. And second is a digital online submission to the revenue service and taxation and registration services. It can be done remotely. You will not need anything except Polish language. Now, the next question is, please allow me to tell you about the ability for foreign beneficiaries to be part of the management bodies without additional permissions or permits. Poland does not have these requirements that some other countries do have, like the Ukraine. You can be a chairman or a member of the board. You don't need any permits for that, for being appointed to the board and or other appointments. Certainly there are rules when you need a visa and employment permits. However, if a question is, are you able to head your own management body like BOD or a company? Yes, it is possible. Now, are you able to open an account on a POA at a Polish bank? Well, the lockdown measures had greatly eased doing business with the Polish banks. We are now opening many bank accounts in Polish banks for both residents and non-residents using the power of attorney. We have extensive experience in opening similar bank accounts for companies from Spain and Cyprus, for instance. There is certainly a huge difference between opening bank accounts using a POA for Polish residents, public entities. In this case, the procedure has been really simplified. We open bank accounts without disclosing any data, which is usually required when going through compliance. So all we do is provide a power of attorney. The register registers the company, the bank receives the information from them, and the presence of beneficiary or director is not necessary. Certainly, it is also noteworthy that this is perhaps a COVID measure allowing us to open this type of bank accounts remotely, and perhaps after the official end of quarantine in the country, the banks will invite the beneficiaries, directors, non-residents that haven't gone through full compliance to come to the country, visit the country, and conduct compliance procedures, but at the moment it is not required. These requirements related to banking sector are non-existent. Everyone easily goes, very comfortable for clients, everyone easily goes through this procedure. Now, do we need a physical real estate brick and mortar office for registering a company? No, you don't need a brick and mortar office. Many clients ask us these questions, and many colleagues offer expensive options, but actually receiving Polish taxpayer certificate, our VAT is a bit different. It's called goods and services tax. To pay that, you don't need to rent and to lease an office. You need a good accountant, well versed in Polish language, who can communicate properly with Polish taxation authorities. Now, next question. Is there a need to employ local staff? Well, no, this is not a requirement. However, when companies founders do apply for business visas, then for business visas, the process is a bit more complicated than for usual non-administrative, non-executive, non-owners. Well, these more serious visas require the criteria for creating 2 local workplaces, employing 2 local FTEs. So if you are looking for a different type of visa, not this one, for instance, a labor permit visa, work visa, then this requirement is circumvented. It doesn't apply. Now, regarding to my experience, from own experience, please allow me to tell you why opening your company in Poland is easy. Well, it is, let me describe the key points. It is very important. The documentation, precise bookkeeping is very important. Experienced Polish accountant is very important, because interaction with the taxation office in Poland is greatly digitalized and automated. Any of your counterparties usually use email or mail services, and you need a mail. They actually use mail services, and that's why it needs to be carefully monitored. You need to very closely liaise with your accountants. Do not delay with transferring necessary paperwork and documentation for your accounting purposes and bookkeeping. Understanding certain mentality of this country is important. If you speak good Polish, you have no problems to resolve complex situations. I'm not speaking of situations with that involve any criminal offenses. Certainly Poland is a EU country and it is focused on the rule of law. However, Poland is also a trading country, and this is why some points related to regulatory and other documentary points can be discussed and resolved successfully for the businessman concerned. However, there are certain excesses. Poland is very strict on environmental protection legislation. So any businesses that could result in polluting the environment do enjoy much closer scrutiny from the government. The permission, the document packages for construction, for instance, require local zoning, planning, architectural, and environmental, can take up to 6 months to collect a full document package for construction purposes. So everything depends on the business sector, on the type of business. Important point is receiving a European tax file number. It's an important point for being a resident. It's very easy to receive that, takes 1 or 2 weeks. And it is very good to know that Poland has a great VAT refund system on import-export services. Also VAT refunds take from 4 to 6 weeks if everything. We never advise to use one founder of a company, because in this case Polish legislation considers him and self-employed, and this enjoys higher social contributions from the type of income they receive. Now, during company registration, it's important to receive digital signature. You used to need to visit Poland for that, for DSA. However, the market is quite flexible. It has adapted, and today you don't need to visit Poland to receive your digital signature authorization. And I should note that digital registration is quite easy and quite straightforward. But if you need to introduce more complex documentation to limit your director's powers, or to introduce complicated changes. We used to have a case when a consortium of companies entered the JV. There were a series of agreements and we had to customize all the paperwork. So this customization actually has to be registered separately. It had to be notarized duly. And this was quite a full-scale process. And a little disadvantage of the local register is that any company registered changes take from 1 to 2 months. So usually you can do it in a day, well, up to 7 days. 7 days is what it takes to register a company. But if you are buying another company, if you're changing beneficiaries or changing the founders, it will take you 2 months to show up on the list of beneficiaries, and you won't be able to open the bank account in the meanwhile, or you will find difficulties. Another important point is taxation. If we look at the base tax bracket, it's somewhat not as exciting as Cyprus, and the advantages that Cyprus does and other countries offer, but this is only the first glance impression. Actually, the taxation system in Poland is quite balanced, but you have to understand that Poland is not an offshore jurisdiction. It's a stable country that wants to host non-transit type of business with substance, with presence, with investments, with accounts and funds, investments. And this is why we have 9 and 19% two income tax brackets, 9% for under 2 million euro income companies and 19% for others. And this is why this CIT is also quite complex. It's costs minus income, so you need to be to have a good accountant to do the books properly. It is very important. Now, a few more innovations in Poland. This is Estonian type of CIT, or, well, it's a little bit different. The proper name is actually a little bit different, but it has entered into effect from the 1st of January 21st. This is not Estonian type of corporate income tax. This is not an attempt to create a type of Cyprus, but only on mainland. No. On the other hand, this was a government initiative, not a business initiative. Actually, we should note that for business recovery, post-COVID, and for businesses that want to enter the Polish jurisdiction, the government wanted to create a convenient investment climate. And the general rule of this piece of tax is, before you distribute your profits, your revenues, you will not need to pay any tax. As long as you're channeling your income into business development or other things or costs and expenses, you are not paying any tax. This allows you to reduce your taxation base on personal income tax also, because also sees many Ukrainian beneficiaries of Polish companies, and these beneficiaries are individuals, they're not corporate. And I'll explain why this model is much more advantageous for non-corporate persons. And in this case, the taxation rate for personal income tax, non-corporate, in this case, we are able to subtract the tax on the income tax you pay, corporate income tax you paid in Poland, deducted from your personal income tax. So it is very advantageous. And I think this CIT will not be that attractive for companies that think Poland can be an attractive transit shell destination for channeling your funds. So there were various questions we faced. People were asking if they could bring in and channel 3 million euros at under 10%. No, that's not the point, and it won't work. The effect from this tax cut, from this tax break, from this tax will only be obvious only if you're really investing, if you're really working. And when you distribute it, income doesn't amount to distributed revenue, amounts to not 100%, but reasonable amounts, a reasonable part only getting distributed. And in this case, the effective tax rate can be from 16 to 23%. And this is quite similar to Cyprus. If we take the Cyprus structure, where the beneficiary is, when the beneficiary owner is a physical individual, is actually a private person, same as in the Ukrainian case, similar person from the Ukraine, for instance. So we do offer a lot of advantages for companies that invest into funds, into stuff, make investments. Here are the key criteria for companies, the companies that are able to use Estonian CIT model. This has to be joint stock society company. Income should not exceed 100 million zloty per year, and this criteria is very important. So there is a certain threshold to be able to take advantage of this taxation. Not more than 50% of companies' tax should be passive or related to passive income, requirement of not less than 3 employees. It's part of a larger framework actually, and the key restriction is that they do not include the shareholders into this 3. You actually need to hire somebody. Some employees. Another important point is that the company founder has to be not only a private individual, but also a company, maybe a Cyprus structure, a Cyprus company, or another company compared to other jurisdictions. I think this is a restriction because, of course, the country is after different goals. It needs to create companies with localization, with substance in the country.
Use this Estonian type shouldn't be found in trusts or other structures. All these requirements should be met simultaneously and all 4 years, during which the tax on withdrawn capital is used. So this model is selected once for 4 years, and one can reject it during the time of operation if you find out that financing was not successful and the model was not convenient, so can reject this model, but pay this tax on undistributed profits. So the rates are basic and reduced. Small companies up to 2 million euros turnover, and reduced rates can be applied only if the company complies to investments in foundations legislated. So I will not comment on that because it's only 8 pages law in the bylaws developed by the Ministry of Finance, where these investment rates will be determined in detail about basic parameters and the basis for calculation of this 15%, because accountants working with these laws have some deviations in their opinions. So I would say if it's a new company, it uses this 20,000 zloty for first 2 years need to be invested. In fixed assets, it's only 5,000 euros. And the next 2 years, the criteria is 50,000 zloty if the company shows increased rates of expenses and main assets. They can use this reduced rates of CIT. So the tax is paid only if when your net income is distributed either as dividends to shareholders or income is paid to cover losses of the companies. All the tax authority included hidden profits, payments to trusts and non-business operations. They will be also taxed. So that's the model, and how it will work will be shown by time. But we see prospects for some businesses with a certain turnover. For medium and large companies, it could be very attractive, because for small companies is 9% tax. It's micro business. It may not be so clear and useful. So what companies do we see here in Poland? These are the segments shown on the slide: trade, transportation, production, manufacturing, IT businesses. By the way, entering from Belarus, many businesses come in. Poland has interesting IP box mode for those companies dealing with development and with high component of intellectual property on those who trade results of IP. Construction and those businesses that want to develop and set up offices in Europe hire personnel, and Poland has good conditions to get loans in banks. Certain conditions, if the company comply financial indicators of banks, can receive very good loans in Poland. So I invite you to this country if you need my help or my company. I would be glad to meet you and discuss all issues that you are interested. If any questions, I can take them. Thank you, Natalia, for this presentation.